Okay, let me say right off the bat that before researching this episode, I have never seen Sailor Moon. I know some of you immediately have questions, so let me preemptively answer them. First, no, I don't know what's wrong with me. Second, luckily the internet exists and I called in many of my weeb friends to help me get the info I needed to do this episode. Lastly, doing this episode on Sailor Moon was most heavily requested by you guys, so I'll do the best I can. I hope I do right by you. With all that said, one thing I knew about Sailor Moon from said Weebo friends mentioned earlier was the relationship between Tuxedo Mask and Sailor Moon. As it's Valentine's Day, let's talk about love. Romantic relationships are a tricky thing and there's no right way to do it. There are a few wrong ways, but mostly what works for you works for you. Love who you love, don't let me or anyone else tell you otherwise. With that said, let's get all up in Sailor Moon and Tuxedo Mask business, starting with who they are. Serena is your typical high school girl, and by typical I mean that she is the reincarnation of the Princess of the Moon Kingdom, because that's a thing. Not only that, her talking space cat, because that's also a thing, Luna gave her the magical locket that allows Serena to become Sailor Moon.
Sailor Moon!
I know, that's me.
Leader of the Sailor Scouts. The Sailor Scouts fight bad things from the Negaverse. That's also a thing. Let's leave it at that, as it's too easy to go off the rails, and unpacking the lore on Sailor Moon alone is just going to take up way too much time. Darien is the alter ego of Tuxedo Mask, an orphan who is the reincarnation of Prince Darien. You know, could they have tried a little harder with the reincarnation thing? Like, I'm sorry, I'm going off script again, but like, you're Darien, the reincarnation of Darien. Can you at least give him a freaking different name? Sorry, a lot bothered me with Sailor Moon. Moving on. Darien is the supportive boyfriend who helps the Sailor Scouts and fights against monsters of the weak. Serena and Darien are destined to be together and rule over the Crystal Kingdom. Again, that's also a thing, and that's just a fancy place in the future. Don't worry about it, it's not that important. As we're talking almost entirely about these two, we don't need to delve too much more into that. I'll of course reference other things here and there throughout the episode, so I guess spoilers? That is really just a bite-sized version of the two, but really that's all we need to know to understand what we need to know about their relationship. Now, they are destined to be together, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're destined to have a happy relationship together. So let's first discuss a common theory of love, and then use it to shed some moonlight on Serena and Darien's relationship. Also, let me clarify that we're talking specifically about romantic love. There are many types of love, so I wanted to make it clear that we're not talking about love between friends, humanity as a whole, or family. Maybe it's family if they're cousins. Wink. Also, when we're talking about love, we're not talking about infatuation, pure lust, or simple attraction. Deep love is not fleeting, attainable, or a fantasy. Like many things in life, it is something that is cultivated. You could say that it's like a red rose that blooms over time. Bing. You can't kill mega monsters with the tiny wilted version of that. So, a favorite to many and a common theory on relationships is the triangular theory of love. The theory uses three aspects of interpersonal relationships and how they form different types of love. The first aspect is intimacy, which is feelings of closeness or how closely connected you are to a person. This definition isn't really about physical intimacy, but more about social or emotional intimacy. Things like having a strong sense of trust, sharing more personal things about yourself, and wanting others to share their feelings with you, these are all things that would qualify under intimacy. Then there's passion, which this is more of the physical aspect of love. This aspect is more about the romance part of love. Attraction, desire, and butt touching all fit in this category. Finally, there's commitment, also sometimes called decision. We are talking about commitment in the long term, and things such as loyalty, making plans for the future, and not prioritizing only oneself all fit under commitment. Commitment also shows that a relationship is its own entity. What I mean by that is that a relationship itself needs to be looked at as its own thing as well as the people involved. An example is someone can be committed to a person, but not necessarily a relationship, or vice versa of that. Darien is committed to Serena, but sometimes I think he falls a little short on being committed to the romantic relationship with Serena. He will be there for her when she needs him and will support her as needed. But when we look at it, the relationship, sure, he spends some time with her, but I look at his actions and see a friendship behavior more than there being, like, love there. Though romantic love is commonly discussed, the theory encompasses all love depending on the weight of each aspect. A few quick examples is non-love, which is none of the three aspects involved that we talked about. Strangers usually fall in this category. Another is friendship, which is heavily on intimacy but little in commitment or passion involved. These are most people's friends, but not all friends fall into this category, which I'll explain later why. One more is infatuation, which is passion with little intimacy or commitment. You get this at the start of relationship. This can obviously change over time, as infatuation tends to transition to consummate love, which is a healthy balance of all three. Even if Serena and Darian find perfect balance between the three aspects, again, it's called consummate love, it's hard to maintain over a long period of time, and it tends to fluctuate a lot. Love evolves and changes, and I just want to say real quick that consummate love is the goal to achieve for many, but it doesn't mean that things are bad if it's not a constant. I'd be surprised if anyone could keep this as a constant depending on how long their relationship is. True, this can turn into things such as empty love, which is pure commitment without the other two aspects, but some are fine if not wanting just companion love with their partner, which passion is low if non-existent. But commitment and intimacy is still very, very strong in these relationships. Nailed it! Sorry, you're gonna have to edit that out. Many believe compassionate love is what is common for couples who have been together for over 20 years, and it's seen pretty often. But make no mistake, many couples with that span of time together fluctuate between that and consummate love. Just because people are older doesn't mean they still don't want to turn on the Marvin Gaye and get it on. Yeah. And yes, for those wondering, family members and extremely close friends do tend to fall in the companion love category, as well as intimacy with these people tend to be very high. The bond with the Sailor Scouts are a good example of consummate love.
Could you guys knock it off? They're gonna hear us!
So even something as simple as love being looked at 3 points, you can see how vast and different love can be. Everyone experiences, communicates, and expresses love in different ways. The trick is to remember that your way of communicating love may not be as well expressed by the person who's receiving it as they may communicate in a different way. I've heard a lot that the key to love is communication. Where I agree with this statement, I think most people think that it's just talking open and honestly with each other, and that's part of it, but there's really a lot of non-vocal ways of communicating. These love languages are ways we express and communicate our feelings of love towards someone. But important thing to remember is that expression needs to be interpreted and should be considered with how you express your love to someone. You should know how you want your love to be expressed to you, of course, but you should also remember that the person who you want to express your love to also has a different way, and if you want to express it, you need to make sure it's interpreted properly. There are 5 basic love languages. First, there's word of affirmation, which is the verbal act of expressing love. Using your mouth words is important to those who fall under this category. Words also tend to be more damaging as well, so remember that in a fight. Then there's quality time, which is just giving person who you're with your full attention. When you are together, be together. Don't have a million other things going on. Of course, physical touch is one as well. Sex is a factor, of course, but not as much as people think it is. Hugging, hand-holding, cuddling, and a bazillion other ways that are not sexual tend to be just as, if not more important to the people who fit in this category. Gift giving, which is the next one, is not just giving someone stuff. It's also about the thought and meaning behind the stuff you give. It's not about the cost, it's about the thoughtfulness. Definitely don't miss a birthday or anniversary either. Finally, there are acts of service. Easing the burden of basic life stuff is what these people love. It could be something as simple as taking out the garbage or taking initiative and getting their oil changed, just so they don't have to do it themselves. To these people, that means a lot. Again, I emphasize that expressing love is about them, not you. How they interpret the love is more important than how you want to interpret it if you want it to be understood properly. Where everyone likes all 5 of these categories to some degree, 1 or 2 of them tend to be above all others. This can vary depending on the person and even the circumstances, so keep that in mind. If I had to guess, Serena would be someone who probably values physical touch and maybe words of affirmation more than the other 3.
I still feel like I'm just a big bother to you all the time.
You've never ever bothered me. I love to be with you. You gotta believe me.
You do?
More than anything else on Earth.
Oh, Darian.
Serena.
I debate quality time being more important than words of affirmation a little bit, but my logic here is that she's very busy and she cares about quality time, but true to the expression of love, there's monsters that need to be fought, food that needs to be eaten, and naps that need to be taken, which means I doubt she will take it really hard if quality time falters here and there as she's busy, and I'm sure Darian is too. Darian, however, I'm making more of an assumption on him, but I would say it's actually probably quality time. He opens up to Serena when it's just those two alone, much more than with other distractions out in the world. He also really doesn't spend all that much time with people, at least what I've seen in the episodes. I mean, you pretty much have to be a moon princess or an alien orphan for him to actively take up time with them.
Okay, You're done. I need my pumpkin to myself now. Ta-ta, strangeoid.
Of course, no matter how much you love someone, you're going to eventually get into a fight. In fact, the catch-all to this is because you open yourself up to someone, they actually do have an easier chance of hurting you. Surprise! Again, in this video, I say nothing in this world is good or bad. It's usually a little bit of both. The bad to love is that you become vulnerable, and that vulnerability, though it has a lot of goodness to it, also makes it easier to be hurt. We're not going to talk about the bad stuff too much beyond that, really, because that's a video in itself. But I also want to say that fighting is definitely a good part of a relationship. In most cases, it doesn't happen often, but it's still bound to happen. You are people and you have differences. First, when in a fight, it's not about right or wrong. If being right is so important to you, not only do you accidentally at times forget the other person's feelings in the moment, but it tends to create a bigger division, stopping any form of resolution. Also, a little tidbit for you, the data says a lot of conflicts in relationships do not go completely resolved. This is totally okay and should be expected. Problems may not get resolved, but at least understand each other and find some happy medium where the resolution is at least acceptable. That's not really a bad thing. Two people will not always find the perfect resolution, but making sure that both are okay with the end outcome is really what makes a relationship strong. This gets really tricky because you also want to make sure that you take some time and make sure that both people feel heard in the situation. So don't be so gung-ho about resolving the problem that one person or both don't feel heard in the situation as well. This is a common problem with guys. I want to insert that a little bit here because 1, it's important, and 2, it helps me set up for one final point. Love and relationships come in all shapes and forms. A couple that is constantly bickering or not really involved with each other's lives can have a great relationship. Calling your partner a meatball head can be a cute inside joke and a term of endearment more than just an insult depending on the couple.
Meatball head?
Of course! That's the perfect name for her, Meatball Head.
I think it kind of fits.
Oh, no, Meatball Head!
Stop! Don't call me Meatball Head! You're a pain, Darian, an even bigger pain than my so-called friend Ray. What are you doing playing choo-choo anyway? Ha! You look like a big dork!
I don't know why I bother talking to you.
If they feel fulfilled, then things are good. A couple defines their fulfillment in a relationship and no one else. Two common problems are others get too involved in the relationship. I'm looking at you, Sailor Scouts. As well as avoiding problems in a relationship at all costs are common factors seen when relationships are reported to go the wrong direction. So don't let friends and family get too embroiled in your relationship, and don't let problems that do come up go unaddressed. Fighting monsters or having a transformation montage may not be the best time to approach those problems, but don't let addressing the issue drag on too long. So with that said, I wanted to tear Serena and Darian a new one. The idea of being destined to be in a relationship with someone really rubs me the wrong way, and I fully admit that I was all too ready to showcase how toxic or unhealthy the relationship is. However, coming into this with open eyes, I think that my initial belief was really wrong. Though, yes, I could nitpick and find some problems with the relationship, that's just silly. No relationship is perfect, but Serena and Darian actually come pretty close. They trust, share, and support each other both on and off the battlefield. They respect and value the other person for sure. And they accept each other for who they are, both good and bad. These things seem to be very important to both of them, so they're paying attention to each other's person's needs to at least some degree, even if it's subconsciously. I honestly think that they look at their relationship as something that's not work that's needed to be due out of some predestined prophecy, but an effort to invest in because they want this. Can't go wrong with that. Though I originally wanted to say otherwise, I believe they'll rule the Crystal Kingdom as a happy and fulfilled couple. Good for them. So, there you have it. If I gave my honest opinion, I'd have to say, destiny aside, I'm happy for Sailor Moon and Tuxedo Mask. They found each other. May their relationship continue to bloom and shine brightly in the moonlight. And thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and your relationships, may they grow too. Be it with a space sailor, a masked dapper gentleman, or just simply with your sailor posse. Love comes in all forms. What works for you, works for you. Also, if this works for you, please share, like, and subscribe to our channel. Until next time, I hope to see you then.
Ashe. Ashe.
This wasn't even our idea. This was actually by you guys. So it's raining a little bit. It is the coldest it's been down in our area. Everything that could possibly go wrong has gone wrong. And honestly, actually, I think this was probably the most fun we've had with any episode. So please keep the suggestions coming, because we find something new, we find something interesting, and okay, if you love Sailor Moon, more power to you. I'm not judging, but totally not my thing, but we still made it our own, so thanks, guys.